Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event, introducing Crafter Video Center, a live and on-demand video platform for the enterprise on AWS Media Services. I think we have a great session planned for you today that will cover not only a solution, but give you a great overview of video in the enterprise. My name is Russ Danner. I'm VP of Products with Crafter Software. Crafter is an open source CMS company that builds open source products and solutions to help companies deliver digital experiences of all kinds. And co-presenting with me is Sean Przybyla. Sean, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Sean Przybyla. I'm a solutions architect with Amazon Web Services. Prior to AWS, I was with AWS Elemental, helping to perfect the media experience with software-defined video processing and delivery services.
Great. Thanks, Sean. We're really excited to have you here with us today to share your experience and background. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We're going to cover some common challenges and use cases that we see with video in the enterprise. Then we're going to look at why organizations are turning to AWS and Crafter for video solutions. And after that, we're going to do a quick demo and take some Q&A. If you have any questions during the event, please put your questions in the Q&A area, and we'll take as many of those at the end as we can. Okay, let's jump right into today's material and take a look at video in the enterprise. I'd like to start by highlighting some common use cases. The first set of use cases are all related to video on demand, or VOD. VOD is essentially a library of video content that's available at any time, and ideally that video can be consumed on any device across a wide range of networks and protocols. And that's an important point because there's been a real explosion of device types, video formats, and networks, and all of those networks have different bandwidth characteristics. So a good solution is going to make handling all of those factors really easy. When people hear the word and term VOD, or video on demand, they usually think of the media and entertainment industry, things like cable networks, Hulu, Netflix, and others. But VOD capability is very useful in almost any industry and for an organization of any size. So let's take a look at some examples that are outside of the media and entertainment industry. So the first one here is marketing. Marketing examples are pretty obvious. Organizations of all sizes create promotional videos, explainer videos, as well as other video content. And they want to keep that content online as part of their demand gen and thus available to their customers for as long as it's relevant. Another type of video use case here is public and investor relations. Communication is a major driver for public and investor perception. And having the right content that's really clear and easy to consume can make a huge impact on how the community or your investors see your organization. Training and onboarding is another clear use case. By putting your training online, you enable your employees and partners, as well as your customers, to get up to speed and refresh themselves on training materials at a time that works for them. So we all know coordinating physical training can be difficult and expensive, and video-based training solutions are really engaging, they're cost-effective, and they help open up new ways to work, which really leads us into this next example here, which is product and customer support video. And there's a really symbiotic relationship between empowering customers to get things done themselves and lowering your support costs with models like do-it-yourself videos that companies want to tap into. Video is a huge supporting technology in this space. How many of us have had something to do around the house, you know, some sort of maintenance? We've gone online, we've watched a short video on how to do it, and then we've gone and done it ourselves. And really this is a new way of working, especially for younger people coming into the workforce. So we see a big demand for this kind of video, not only enabling customers but also employees, the sort of how-to style video that's viewable right at the point of need, so right as you're about to take on a task. Another use case here, and our last VOD use case for today, is internal communications and news. More and more organizations are communicating to their employees through video, and there's really no better way to keep a global organization up to date and executing on an organization's mission and values than through inspiring content that's easy to consume and that really speaks to your organization's mission, values, and objectives. And that's a really great segue into the last couple of use cases that I have here, which deal with live video. So live refers to a broadcast style of video that's near real time. And just like our VOD examples, today live video needs to be accessible anywhere on many devices and all kinds of networks. So let's kind of pick up where we left off with that communications and news example. After a certain size in an organization, it's difficult to get your entire company together to share an update on a new policy, or let's say you want to take on a new market, or you have a new vision, or any other leadership communication. And live video gives your leadership, your HR departments, as well as other departments, the opportunity to reach the company in a very present and relevant way. And by communicating with live video, it gives you an opportunity to interact with your audience through channels like online chat during the event. So there's a unique opportunity there to be interactive. And it's really not just corporate communications. Events in general are a great use case for live video. Promotional activities, product launches, user conferences, investor meetings, live webinars. These are all sort of a few examples of live events, but live video gives us a much broader audience, of course, and it helps us build momentum around the events. And typically, we put a lot of money and time into getting to the event, getting it set up, and producing the event. And by getting that out to a wider audience, we're going to get a much better ROI on that event itself. Okay? And then our last example for today here is training. So as useful and as timely and cost-effective as guided training is, we still have a lot of hands-on training classes. And because it can be difficult logistically to get everybody in one place, we often miss the opportunity to address all the students that we want to be able to cover. So live streaming lets us reach those folks where they are. And again, it offers that opportunity for them to interact with the class and the teaching staff, which can be huge. Sean, before we get off the topic of live video, one of the questions I get a lot is how real-time can live video be, and what are some of the factors that drive live video performance?
Sure, yeah. So I get that question quite a bit as well, so thanks for asking it. I think in adaptive bitrate protocols, often with the default settings on many encoders and many packaging systems, you frequently see a delay of upwards of 30 seconds to even a minute with adaptive bitrate. One easy way to actually lower that kind of glass-to-glass delay is by using smaller segment sizes, whether that's an Apple HLS or MPEG Dash. So by simply lowering the segment sizes, often you can get around 10 seconds, which is usually the sweet spot if you're doing some type of interactivity like a live chat, or you have a moderator that's interacting with an audience, kind of like a webinar or in a training scenario. One other thing too is the protocols are advancing in this area. AWS Elemental will have some really cool demos showcasing sub 10-second latency, I think around 5 seconds at NAB this year. So if you're planning to attend NAB, swing by the booth and we'll show you some cool applications of low latency streaming.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Another common use case that I want to bring up just before we move on from use cases is converting live content to VOD content after it's aired. So live content is absolutely amazing, but it's not always possible for everyone who needs the material to attend. So we want to make it possible for them to watch at a later time. We also want to make it possible for viewers who are actually watching the live event to go back and watch something that they've missed. In essence, do a sort of a catch-up viewing, or what you might think of as a DVR viewing, right? This is something that people kind of got familiar with, or they've become familiar with in sort of at their home, and watching TV shows and things like that. It's something that they're coming to expect, and something that we can actually provide with tools like Amazon's media services. So the main point here is that making it easy for organizations to workflow live video to VOD video content is a major use case and a major requirement for organizations. Okay, so now that we've had a chance to look at some use cases, it's pretty clear that video is really valuable in the enterprise. There's all kinds of reasons to use it. So what are some of the requirements that organizations have? And why aren't organizations just putting their video up on YouTube or Periscope or some of these other sort of public providers and calling it a day? So let's take a look at some of that. So one of the first requirements that sort of keeps organizations from doing that is ease of use. And of course, these experiences really have to be very sort of consumer grade, really easy to for people to use, no training at all required. And of course, they need to be mobile friendly, but the requirements really go well beyond that. To be really easy to use, organizations like to tailor their user experience directly to the use cases around the kinds of video that they're showing for the specific purpose that they're showing those videos. Another big one is security. Most organizations don't want training or mission or strategy related content to be unprotected and sort of floating around the internet, right? You need to have credentials for their organization. So any enterprise video solution needs to plug into your organization's security, and that's got to be easy to set up and make happen. Right? So it's one thing to say, yes, it's code and anybody can do it. It's another thing to have real support for that. Well, along with ease of use and security is personalization and findability of the content. So once your content library reaches a certain size, you really need to make sure that the video is easy to find. And that means having the right metadata on it so that it's really searchable, making sure that, for example, the video content itself is full text indexed, which we'll get into later. So you can find the videos based on what might be talked about in the video. And also that the system is what we would call personalizing the experience. So the platform itself should be really taking into consideration who is the user, what are their roles, what other factors are in play that I can then use to recommend that video to the user so that they don't have to search through the whole catalog. They get the subset that matters to them. And that we would call personalization. Another major requirement is metrics, right? So organizations really want to know how the video is being consumed, how far into the video it's is being watched, what video is watched, what video isn't being watched. And using these metrics, organizations are able to better understand what video works for them, what doesn't, and then they can adjust based on that. So they have to have good metrics. And then the last one here is branding, control, and flexibility, right? And this kind of connects back to that first requirement, but ultimately what organizations want is control over their content. They want to know who's able to see it and how it's being presented, and they want control not only over the access, but over the entire experience. And canned solutions just don't provide for that need. Okay, so those are some typical requirements. What about some more advanced requirements that we see from an organization? These are things that we might consider value add that organizations use to enrich their video content or better leverage their video content. Let's talk about a couple of those. So the first one is a big one, and that's transcription. And this is basically the ability to extract the audio track of the video content and return it as text with metadata about that transcription. There's quite a bit of detail there in terms of what's being said, how confident are we that that's what's being said, and so on. But that ultimately is just metadata. And having that information makes it possible to do a lot of things, including full text indexing, but we can also then take that video and do other things with it, including further processing and analysis. So once you have a transcription, you can then use that to set markers in the video for keywords and topics so that it's really easy to find a part of a video that's about something. You can add captions to the video after the fact. You can also translate that video into other languages to improve its reach. Another requirement that we see often is the ability to enrich the video content with a lot of metadata, right? The whole idea of personalizing the user experience around the video, securing it, really understanding what the video is about, and so on, and all that takes metadata. And adding metadata can be a really daunting task. But today, with machine learning and artificial intelligence, there's a lot of metadata that can be automatically gathered and applied right to the video. And I think Sean's going to talk a little bit more about that. So with the help of these powerful services to analyze the video content, some organizations are then taking that analysis and using it with other services like clipping to automatically go into the video and clip out specific segments of interest in those videos and then use them as separate assets with their own life cycle, with their own workflow. And just a couple use cases around this. It might be something as simple as producing a highlight reel. And it might also be something as mission critical as issuing some kind of security alert with the video attached to it. Maybe you've got a showroom or a parking lot where people aren't supposed to be, and if they detect that something's going on there, you alert somebody. And so that can be, you can do some really powerful things with this kind of technology. Another common requirement is digital rights management, or DRM. And DRM refers to both managing the video content and metadata about acceptable usage of the video, as well as tracking and enforcing restrictions on the distribution and delivery of the video. And then the last thing that's, I think, worth talking about is non-functional requirements that enterprises have. And the first one I have here is bring your own device. And this really comes down to the fact that today everybody has multiple mobile devices and multiple screens that they interact with. And companies don't want to issue their own devices specifically for particular use cases. They want employees to be able to just come in, get on their network, go through their security or whatever their authorization is, and then be able to consume the video. So a solid solution has to support any device, and that's sort of what we would call bring your own device, or BYOD. Another one here is any network. So if you're going to support any device, then you really need to make sure that you're able to handle any network. And we know that there are all kinds of network conditions out there, from very fast broadband networks to very high latency cell phone networks, 3G, 4G, and so on. So video needs to be adaptive for the given bit rates and resolutions that your users are on. And in some cases, you have network conditions that are extremely limited. Maybe it's only a sat phone, or in some cases there's no external link to the internet at all. You maybe still want to show some video content. So for example, I have a picture of an oil rig out here. Imagine you've got a very remote oil field and your company has just started using a new drill bit. You've trained all your techs to go out and install that drill bit. Taking into consideration some of the use cases that we talked about, perhaps they could be able to go on, view the video of that installation step by step at the particular point that they are in the installation, watch the video, and then go do that activity, right? And that, with most video platforms, is just something that's not possible to do if you've got a lot of video content, right? You can't just stick it on a device and have the device carry that, or be able to update it and so on. So Amazon's technology in Crafter, and this includes some technology with Snowball, it's actually possible to service these really remote areas. It doesn't matter whether you're out in the middle of a remote oil field or out in the middle of the ocean. We can get huge volumes of video delivered to any device, which is pretty awesome. Another major requirement here is scalability. Everybody tends to think of scalability as, hey, we've got some kind of peak demand scenario, like it's a holiday season, or we've got a spike in traffic for some reason, and that's absolutely true. But I also like to think of it as being able to scale up and scale down. So when you talk about video in the enterprise, because you're not media and entertainment, you may not always have live streams going on, or and you want to be able to make sure that you can scale back the infrastructure and really only use what you need. And with the introduction of cloud-based platforms like Amazon Media Services, we have that ability to right-size that infrastructure and use only what we need, which of course is the last non-functional requirement here, which is that we can get to some kind of cost structure that makes sense for the enterprise, which is basically kept video in the enterprise to a much smaller usage than it would otherwise be. So I think we have a great answer at this point. With these use cases requirements in mind, we'd like to talk about how AWS and Crafter are tackling these needs. And so what I'm going to do is turn things over to Sean, and he's going to take us through how Amazon is supporting these solutions. So with that, Sean.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks for covering all those use cases. I think there's a lot to chew on there, and hopefully throughout the next couple minutes we can give you listeners an idea of how AWS and Crafter provide solutions that solve for many of these functional requirements, value-added requirements, and video, live and VOD workflows. So first I want to just cover the high level why many enterprises and media companies, et cetera, are choosing AWS to deploy these solutions. I think there's quite a few different reasons, actually. The first is the ability to pay as you go. And Russ talked a little bit about scalability and cost savings there at the end of his section. And I think it's really important to note that by enabling the pay-as-you-go cost structure of many of these services and the ability to scale up and scale down, organizations are never paying more than the data that they store, or the data that they deliver, or the data that they process. So as opposed to, say, spending a significant sum of capital expenditure to build out a data center or build out their own infrastructure, they can just simply pay for what they use. The next is benefiting from massive economies of scale. AWS has actually lowered prices on 16 plus occasions for our services, and a lot of those cost-saving mechanisms are enabled by the massive economies of scale that we get by building out this infrastructure across the globe. As Russ mentioned on the scalability side, being able to handle unpredictable needs for our customers is one really big reason that enterprises choose to use AWS. So for instance, we have a customer, Sony DADC, that has migrated 20 petabytes of their media assets to AWS, and their asset archive is actually growing by 1 petabyte a month. They don't have to worry about massive influxes in that archive if they, say, get a new content refresh or they secure licensing to additional content and need to store additional media. They don't have to build out their data centers to support it. They can simply upload it into our object storage, and away they go. These last 2 points I like to kind of bundle together. Being able to shorten the time to market and test out new approaches. In the cloud, failure is not a bad thing. We want people to test new things, to explore and invent, and not worry about large sunk costs and capital expenditure that was required to test and research new products, new services, new features. And the cloud really enables that. Joe Inzerillo from MLB Advanced Media, or BAMTech, says that AWS gives him the ability to say yes to any new project or any new product that they're looking at, because they know that if something doesn't work right, the financials don't work right, or the product doesn't succeed in the market, that there's not a big sunk cost in their effort, which blends a little bit with focusing your needs. So AWS last year launched 1,400 new services and features, and by storing your content and processing and delivering it on AWS, you're unlocking a lot of those features for your content without actually having to invest time and effort into building them yourself. And what that really allows you to do is remove what we like to call undifferentiated heavy lifting of building, hosting, and developing services yourself, and instead focus on the core business value that you're trying to build through your products and services. And last but not least is the ability to go global instantly. Imagine maybe you're an enterprise that has multiple offices across the world. By utilizing infrastructure as code, you can deploy these video delivery services in multiple regions simply with the click of a button, and not have to, say, build out a new data center or contract out rack space and things like that. You can simply use tools like CloudFormation to represent the architecture as code and deploy it in any region worldwide. And to kind of piggyback on that, I think it's important to kind of depict the footprint of AWS. We have 16 regions with 42 availability zones within those regions and 114 edge locations. So here I've depicted the footprint. There's a couple new regions coming soon, so maybe if you're dialed in from across the world, we have new regions coming in Bahrain, Sweden, as well as a new region coming in AWS GovCloud. And again, this is important if you have an enterprise with a global presence and you're trying to deliver enterprise video to many different offices throughout the globe. So now I want to transition to the AWS media services. And what I'd like to do is cover the 2 use cases that Russ introduced us to earlier, the live and video on demand workflow. And what I'd like to do is go over kind of a simple workflow and then call out some of the media services that we launched at reInvent in December of last year, and kind of walk you through how these architectures come to fruition. So starting with live, we might have an event or a training center or a conference room, etc. And from that event, we're either getting SDI signals or HDMI signals from cameras directly, or maybe from a switchboard. And from that, we're typically going to connect to an on-premise encoder of some type. The data rates coming from those program switchers or cameras directly are typically raw or really high in data rates, so we want to compress them before sending them for further distribution. So the way we do that is an encoder like AWS Elemental Live, which can take many inputs, SDI, HDMI, IP, etc., and compress that signal down to what I like to call a contribution feed, so that we can send it to the cloud for further processing and distribution. So from AWS Elemental Live, we might have an RTMP stream, maybe at 10 megabits per second, And we can send that to AWS Elemental Media Live. And Media Live is our live transcoding service. It's a fully managed service, meaning you don't have to scale or provision the infrastructure. You simply create live channels, specify the inputs and what resolution bitrate stacks you want to publish, and away you go. So from our on-premise encoder, we're publishing to AWS Elemental Media Live. And from there, we need some place to host that live stream. So in the case of maybe streaming HLS, Dash, and Microsoft Smooth, we could use AWS Elemental Media Package. And Media Package is a just-in-time packaging media origin service. So in the case where you need to support multiple devices across multiple protocols, across varying network connections, you can use Media Package to just-in-time package the content. And just-in-time packaging, or JITP for short, is really a way of only having to transcode or store one set of assets, but being able to serve it across many different protocols just in time as the devices request them. So from there, it's kind of the network hop to the devices. So we might take and deliver to devices on network. So in that case, we might use something like Direct Connect or a VPN connection back to an enterprise facility. Or if we're serving over the public internet, we might use Amazon CloudFront, which is our content delivery network that utilizes those 114 edge locations that I mentioned earlier. And so that's kind of the end-to-end live workflow using Elemental Live and the newly released Elemental Media Services. On the VOD side, it's very similar, but we have a few different services here, as you might imagine. So instead of taking a live signal from a camera or a production switcher, we might have produced content in an edit bay or an edit suite using Premiere or Avid or something like that. And from those editing systems, we've produced probably a mezzanine asset like ProRes or DNX HD or something like that. And we can upload that to S3 in various ways. But once it's there, we can transcode with AWS Elemental Media Convert, which, much like Media Live, is a transcoding service. However, in this case, it's specifically focused for file-based media. So just like Media Live, it's also fully managed, so you don't have to worry about scaling infrastructure. You can simply submit jobs to Media Convert, give it an S3 location and an S3 output location, along with the job profile, and transcode your file-based assets. One common pattern we see is customers using Lambda in conjunction with S3 events to drive their workflow automation. So maybe you have a content management system like Crafter, and you want to pre-populate or call out to some other services to aggregate data or metadata. You could use S3 events and Amazon Lambda to, say, generate additional metadata and submit that back to your content management system. And then for the last hop, again, you can either bring it back on network if you have a kind of a closed network at the enterprise, or use Amazon CloudFront to deliver the content. All right, so with that, I did want to just quickly call out that, as I mentioned, these services were launched at reInvent last year, end of November, beginning of December, but we already have a ton of interest from the field, specifically from Fox Sports using Media Live to drive their next generation live streaming platform. So these services were just released, but lots of people interested in them and lots of people using them today, like Crafter here. So with that, I want to transition a little bit to the full portfolio of AWS, not just the media services, but all of the infrastructure services, as well as some of the other services we see commonly paired with media workloads. It's important to note that it's not just AWS services. We also have a vast and wide partner ecosystem that includes thousands of ISVs like Crafter here, as well as systems integrators who can help develop and build solutions alongside you. On the AWS side, we've categorized some of these services along with their functionality as it pertains to media workloads. So I mentioned earlier, Amazon S3 is a common place to store your VOD assets or your VOD archive. One of the considerations there, though, is how you actually get content into S3 in the first place, especially for large media assets, maybe a large archive of ProRes files or J2K files, which can range from 100 megabits per second to 300 or 400 megabits per second, which can create large, often 100-plus gigabyte files for each media asset. So there's multiple options in the portfolio for helping ingest the media content. Direct Connect, Amazon Snowball, and S3 Transfer Accelerator. We don't have time to dive into each of these today, but to summarize, Direct Connect provides a private link between your data center and AWS. Snowball provides petabyte scale data transfer, and Amazon S3 Transfer Accelerator allows you to use our edge network to upload assets into S3. On the compute side, we have Amazon EC2 or Elastic Compute, and this would be great if you're leveraging the media services along with maybe some quality control or asset management system like Crafter, and you need to deploy that as an Amazon machine image on compute infrastructure. So you could use EC2 for that. AWS Lambda, our serverless or functions as a service service, allows you to run code without provisioning or managing servers at all. And I gave an example earlier about how you might use Lambda in conjunction with the media services. On the processing side, we've talked already about the media services, providing transcoding, packaging, and server-side ad insertion. But we also have ThinkBox software. So if you're maybe doing rendering, visual effects, workloads, maybe you're building 3D models, computer-generated models of various assets, maybe architecture or product design, ThinkBox also could fit in there. And using the Deadline software, you can actually automatically scale and provision rendering resources in AWS very easily. On the storage side, I gave a few examples of using Amazon Simple Storage Service, or S3, but it's important to note that we also have Glacier, EFS, and EBS. Glacier is a long-term storage archive as a service. EFS is a file system-based service, and EBS is our block storage, typically paired with EC2 instances. Delivery, we talked about CloudFront and its 114 edge locations. Often, we highly recommend that customers delivering video data over the internet leverage a CDN of some type, ideally CloudFront. Last but not least, collecting analytics, AI, and making sense of all of that data with AI and machine learning. So Kinesis and Redshift provide a way to ingest massive amounts of data, Redshift a way to index it, and then Recognition and Transcribe allow us to make sense of the visual data as well as the audio data. So I want to hyper-focus on those real quickly. Amazon Recognition is a deep learning-based computer vision service for images and video assets, and it really allows you to extract meaningful data about your content. So this data could be objects in the video, it could be faces or celebrities in the video, it could be content that you don't want to send out to your audience, so you could use some of the image moderation features to detect questionable content, as well as extract text from the video itself. And we already have quite a few companies, specifically in the media space, using Amazon Recognition today to extract value from their content that they otherwise would have had to do manually or not at all. And one example of that is C-SPAN. So C-SPAN, if you're not familiar, has a ton of video content about our democratic process, to put it briefly. And they actually had a manual metadata tagging process for all of that content. Unfortunately, a lot of that content was not indexed because they simply didn't have the human brain power to do it. And so after we launched Recognition at reInvent the year before last, they actually built a prototype in about 3 weeks that allowed them to fully automate this pipeline. And they were not only able to index all the content, they were able to save 9,000 hours a year in manual curation costs. Amazon Transcribe, which was announced and is currently in public preview at reInvent 2017, allows for a fully managed and continuously trained speech recognition service. So with Transcribe, you can basically upload an MP3 or a WAV file and get text back. That text also returns with timestamps and confidence scores, punctuation, and supports multiple languages with more languages coming. And as Russ alluded to earlier, we're really excited about the potential applications of this service in media workloads in the enterprise, specifically in call centers, subtitling, closed captioning, meeting transcriptions, and we already have customers that are using it. For instance, in Sentia, they actually record 13,000 summaries per day from radio and transcribe those radio broadcasts into text, and then combine it with Comprehend, which is a sentiment analysis service, which allows them to unlock and understand the sentiment of all of those broadcasts. And so with that, I want to hand it back over to Russ and let him talk a little bit about how he's using AWS services as well as what they've built at Crafter Software to help make this easier for you.
Thanks, Sean. It's really clear here with all that background just how powerful the platform is and the kinds of robust solutions that you can build and still be cloud scalable and on demand. And so what I'd like to do today is introduce one such solution, and that is Crafter Software's Video Center on Amazon AWS. This is a solution that's already in use by major organizations in both the public and private sector. And in a sense, it's a face on top of all of these capabilities. The Video Center is for both live and VOD content, and it's meant to cover all of the enterprise requirements that we discussed in the webinar. The type of user interfaces that are required can vary greatly. The great thing is that Video Center is built on top of Crafter CMS, and that's a full-featured dynamic CMS with personalization capabilities, and it allows you to build any kind of video consumer experience. So, for example, you have this experience that we see here, which is a channel selection type experience that you would see with something like Hulu or Netflix or others. Here you can very easily browse through categories and find the content that you want to watch. And once you click on a video, of course, then the video simply takes over the screen. The user has the rights to see the video. It's streamed to them for their bit rate for their device and so on. Another example, and something that looks completely different, is more of a specific YouTube-type channel experience. And we'll look more at this in the demo. The key here is, again, the user experiences can vary a lot, and that's a key. It's a key thing for organizations. They want to be able to vary those experiences. And the Video Center makes it possible because of the fact that it sits on top of Crafter. So you can deliver very beautiful, secure, personalized video content through the type of interface that's meant for those needs. What all of the experiences have in common is they all need to serve video that's very high quality and that works across any network, but they need to provide that flexibility, the control, and personalization that they really can't get from a public or typical SaaS-type solution. They also need the scalability, the robustness, the cost-effectiveness, and the other types of advanced services that Sean talked about that AWS provides. The user interfaces we looked at there are supported out of the box. And if you need something a little bit different because we're based on an underlying CMS, you can change those things. You have the tools that you need to modify that experience. And here you can see in this bit of an architecture diagram that we're going to build up, we've got, for example, video consumers coming through the first part of the architecture, which is the end user UI. You also want to be able to manage your video content and metadata. So that might be anything from your live video channels to your VOD library. Definitely going to be events that you want to configure and metadata that you'll want to change about your assets. And the Video Center solution provides you with the management console that allows you to perform these tasks. So you can configure the look and feel of the experience. You can manage your VOD library. You can create channels and events that support your live streaming. You can also customize the metadata model, create your own taxonomies, and collect any kind of metadata about the video content that you have. And then you can use that metadata to help make the video more searchable or to personalize and suggest the right video for the folks that are viewing it. Here again, we sort of see the overall solution in a sense. You have the end user portal that provides the consumer with the ability to view secure and targeted content, and then you have the management console that allows you to manage the content. And then these two interfaces are sitting on top of that scalable infrastructure that supports the applications and the workflows behind them. And so I want to dig into that a bit. Portal managers use the management console to manage their VOD assets and metadata and so on, and those VOD assets are all stored in Amazon S3. The CMS supports the metadata that will be configured to match any kind of tagging that you want. We're managing the metadata, the searchability of the content, and the user experience, and it's the Amazon infrastructure that's storing and delivering the video. And video consumers, or VOD consumers, again, still go through the front-end UI to get their content. You're also able to stream video up to the AWS cloud hosted solution directly from your equipment on the ground. Similar to the VOD consumers, the live video consumers go through the end user portal to get their content. And all of the live video can be converted to VOD assets automatically and stored in your library for later consumption. So that's something that's basically built into your workflows. Under the hood, empowering the Video Center solution is the full suite of Amazon capabilities. The entire platform is highly available, it's elastically scalable, and you can see here that's all supported by the compute services. And also the video content is served close to the point of need by Amazon CloudFront. And what that means is that users get very secure video that's delivered as close to their location as possible. And the security is based on side URLs that take into consideration the user's IP address and other policies to make sure that they're the only ones that are seeing the video that's being served. As I said, the VOD library is stored in Amazon S3, and regardless of whether the content is uploaded directly through the Video Center management console or it begins its life as a live stream, it makes its way into S3 as a VOD asset. And because it's S3, it means you can store a massive amount of content in a very cost-effective manner. Further, as assets enter the system, they can be processed via the media services, which automatically handles transcoding and renditioning operations, so creating different resolutions for different bit rates and so on for VOD assets, but also things like thumbnailing the video and creating audio tracks and ultimately doing some of the other things that Sean talked about, which is really covered here by this slide. Because these, what are really amazing capabilities are only the basic capabilities, right? The platform using events and so on, you can trigger operations to send that video out for transcription and recognition and metadata tagging and so on. So there's an amazing amount of capability there that you can take advantage of. This all works together to create a really amazing solution. So this isn't really just about an ability to easily manage video and store it and serve it. It's the whole picture, that whole runway of capabilities that you have on top of this globally distributed, elastically scalable platform that fits directly into your enterprise. So with that, what I'd like to do is maybe jump into a little bit of a demo, and then if we have some time, we'll take some questions. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this is our Video Center. This is one of the user interfaces that we looked at during the slide portion of the presentation here. And you can see that this is, again, this is sort of an out-of-the-box example. And you've got a home page. This is meant to look a lot like a YouTube channel or a video sharing channel. And here you have very promoted videos in a slider. You've got a promotion of the latest videos and any kind of other targeted videos that you want. Of course, you can click on any video and watch it.
Corporate volunteering is really important to language.
And let me just mute that. So you can see just how fast that video plays. It's very immediate. Of course, it's being served off of S3 and CloudFront. And so very, very fast performance. And again, secure. So with that, I'm going to go back here. I want to show you a little bit. Well, we'll show you a little bit more about this video page here. You see, you have metadata, you have categories, we have other recent videos that were posted and related content. And along with that, you've got all kinds of social interaction. All of that stuff is sort of out of the box for you. If we go back, we also support things like search. So, for example, I can say, find me content that relates to the CEO. Right, and here you can see the beautiful search interface that allows me to see some basic data about the video and then go watch it, right? And we're tracking how many views and so on. So it's very easy to kind of get up and get started with this solution. I'll just show you just real quick the kind of variety of video interfaces. Here's the exact same experience but with different content. And out of the box with Video Center, we also have this concept of a launcher. So I can go back to an experience here where you've got kind of like almost a Fire TV experience where you can create channels. And you see here that this is one of those channels here. I can jump in and see that. We can kind of go back. So that's the way into that. If I go back to the launcher here, I can jump into a completely different experience where I've got more entertainment-related content. So in the example that you see there, that might be an example where on the same installation, I've got both training and how-to content, and I also have entertainment content, and it's easy to get between the two experiences, and you can see just how widely those experiences vary. Just jumping into the CMS portion quick, the management console. I'm going to jump over here, and you can see that we're in what's called Crafter Studio. This is our CMS platform, and you can see that I can preview the content here in the studio. And this tool allows me to edit the entire experience as well as the video metadata itself. So, for example, I'm going to open up the sidebar here, and let's focus on videos. So I have both live and VOD video libraries here, and I can open these up. Now, in my example, I have a very simple library, but I could have as many categories and as many different stores of videos as I want. And you can see if I just click on any one of these videos, let's see here, just for example, that I have a full range of metadata. And again, this is completely configurable by the tool itself. So it's just a drag and drop process to add new metadata. And you can see the mezzanine video here being stored up on S3. And the platform, if you do decide to upload video through the platform, it'll automatically put that video on S3 for you and so on. So it's all handled out of the box for you. All the categories and other taxonomies completely definable by you. And it's really easy to change something. So, for example, if I just make a simple change here, and we'll say the giving kindness to the community, and then say update, then, for example, I'll see that right away in the tool, and then I can publish it. So that's how easy it is to sort of update video. And everything here is fully indexed, so it's all searchable. The last thing I want to show in the demo here, and then we'll take a few questions, is live stream. So I've actually, from another computer in the same room here, I've started a live stream. I've got some Amazon infrastructure up here running with Media Live. So I've got an endpoint in the Amazon cloud that's accepting video from my on-the-ground equipment here. And I'm streaming video up from this room to this Media Live channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and it looks like we have the metadata is already set for this live event, and this event is defined here. I'm going to open up Streams and say Edit. So you can see that for a live event, I can choose things like when it should be, when it's going to start and when it's going to end. And here we see that this event goes from 12 to 3 Eastern. So this event's available. So even in the authoring tool, I really ought to be able to click on that event. And here we should see me giving my demo here. And, I'll go ahead and wave. And we won't spend too much time on this, but then you'll see me wave. And as Sean said, with a very typical out-of-the-box install, no tuning whatsoever, really very large segments. In fact, with my configuration, there's typically about a 30-second to 40-second delay. Okay, so let's go ahead, and there's my wave. So with that, that's just a little bit of a demo of the Media Center. With that, what I'm going to do is we're going to transition back to the presentation slides. All right. So just by way of mention here, but you are able to download the slide from the webinar console. You're also able to download a solution brief about Crafter's Video Center and Amazon's media services. So I invite you to go ahead and do that. If you're looking for a way to get started with this solution, I think if you're looking for maybe a more in-depth demo and you want to get behind the scenes, then certainly reach out to us and we'd be happy to arrange a demo for you. Kind of go from there. If you're looking to maybe install the solution, it's a 100% open source solution and you can install it yourself. So we can also help you with that. Just let us know. Reach out to us at info@craftersoftware.com and we'd be happy to help you with that. So with that, let's take a few questions. I'm going to go ahead and put up our presenter information as well, so that if you have, this gives you some additional contact information if you'd like to follow up. So for the first question here that I see is related to how to get a hold of this stuff. So I kind of just mentioned that. I'll kind of move on. Another one here is, are there any use cases where Video Center is not appropriate or the media services? So maybe Sean, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think just to put it pretty simply, the Crafter solution, obviously Russ, I'll let you speak to that, but from the media services perspective, predominantly designed from a one-to-many perspective. And what I mean by that is content production or content distribution from one entity to many viewers. So what they're not specifically designed for today is, say, two-way communications. Something like Amazon Chime, for instance, which is our two-way communication, chat, and audio-visual communication service. So the media services are specifically designed for content producers who want to distribute content to a wide audience.
Great. I think that basically that covers that for us as well. The Video Center solution is meant to sit on top of those kinds of experiences. Another question here is, what kind of security platforms do you plug into? I think the answer really here is almost any. We've plugged into a lot of different solutions, everything from SAML2 and CAS. I know IAM is something. Amazon's IAM is something that is possible, and really we've plugged into a lot of other proprietary systems as well. So we've got a framework for that, and it's fairly easy to adapt to any security interface. And most typically we see SAML2. Another question we have here is, if I want to try Amazon Transcribe or Recognition, where do I start? So Sean, maybe that's a good one for you.
Yeah, so for Recognition or Transcribe, as I mentioned earlier, you can simply sign up for an AWS account, and directly in the console, there's actually some really neat demonstrations of the technology. You don't even have to upload your own content, though I would highly recommend it, but you can get started right through the AWS console. Transcribe, because it's in public preview, you will have to sign up to get access to today. Obviously, that will be generally available very soon.
Great. I have another one here that is there any limit to the number of videos that I can manage in Video Center? So I'll take this first from a Video Center perspective, and then Sean, maybe I'll take it from an Amazon perspective. So with Video Center, there's no software limits or anything like that in Video Center that would stop you from managing massive, maybe even millions of objects of video. Again, we are managing the metadata and the experience around the videos, and then Amazon infrastructure is storing and delivering the video content itself. And so there's no limits there per se. Of course, there may be some practical organizational limits, and that really just comes down to your information architecture and how you want to manage your libraries and so on. But yeah, there's no limit there. Sean, you want to talk a little bit about maybe best practices from an AWS perspective?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, we have large media organizations using Simple Storage Service or Amazon S3 to store upwards of 20, 30, 40 plus petabytes of content, growing at petabytes per month. So S3 is a near infinitely scalable object storage service. So from an object store perspective, I think it's safe to say that you can store a ton of content in S3. From a compute perspective, the Crafter solution runs on EC2. If you're using EC2, for quality control or other products, things like that, EC2 scales quite nicely as well. Gartner actually estimates that AWS has more compute capacity than the next 14 cloud providers combined. So when we talked about the global footprint of AWS, within each one of those regions, there is a ton of compute capacity ready to serve your needs.
Great, and it looks like we're just a couple minutes over, so I do want to take, I think there's one question here that I want to take here and actually maybe pass to you, Sean, is how long does it take to transcode and transcribe video? Maybe want to take that and then we'll close up.
So on the transcode side, it's going to vary depending on the bit rate and resolutions and the content source. So the way I like to think about it is this concept of real-time factor. So if you have a minute video, it's pretty often that it takes a minute or more to transcode. It really depends on the bouquet that you're creating. And with transcribe, as I mentioned, it's currently in public preview, not GA yet, but some of the tests I've run are about 8x real time. So if I had a 1-minute audio clip, it would take about 8 minutes to transcribe that clip. So that's just some ballpark estimates for you.
Great. Well, we have a lot of other questions here, but we don't have time to take them. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow up with all of you over email. And so we will answer those questions. Again, I want to invite you to download the solution brief and also the slides if you like. And if you're interested in getting started with Crafter Video Center on Amazon Media Services, then go ahead and reach out to us at info@craftersoftware.com, or you can reach out to the contact information you have here on the screen. And beyond that, on behalf of Sean and myself and Crafter Software and AWS, we'd really like to just thank you for your time and have a great day.